the first time in 30 years that a Democrat has won.
Crushed.
But they really, they poured a lot of money in this. And even the head of the DNC said they were going to pour a lot of money into it after the Tennessee effect, after the Democrat lost, or the socialists basically lost in Nashville. So they focused on this race.
So
And
she
focused on affordability and making local government work better and faster.
So she was representing Little Havana, and she is a moderate, looked at as a moderate Democrat. I can't give you her bio, but that's how they label her. So she is not a traditional left wing like Zohran Mamdani,
former county
socialist
commissioner.
So she comes over and takes us over. But I'm just say this. Look at the numbers, get the experts in there, and if the numbers show the Hispanic vote went heavily for the Democrat, that is a warning sign for next year.
That is a Fox News host saying that on Fox News, not MSNBC, not CNN, not a Democratic strategist on a podcast, a conservative Fox and Friends host, one of the most loyal voices in Trump's media ecosystem, sitting at that desk and telling his own audience that the numbers are a warning sign. And he is not wrong, because what just happened in Miami is not a blip. It is not an outlier. It is the latest data point in a pattern that is now impossible to ignore. And the panic you are starting to see on the right, including on the network that has spent years cheerleading every Trump decision, tells you everything about how serious this moment actually is. Stay with this, because by the time this breakdown is finished, you will understand not just what happened in Miami, but why it is sending shockwaves through Republican strategy all the way to the 2026 midterms.
He's going to try to, but the argument that the guy who's been out for a year, that it's all his fault when you've implemented a totally new economic agenda and that it's a failure in basically every corner of it, is not really resonating with people. When Joe Biden's inflation number was over 9%, the entire world's inflation number was up. Donald Trump doesn't have the same issues that Joe Biden did. He doesn't have a supply chain problem. He doesn't have a global health pandemic that was killing millions of people all over the world. He's just setting our economy on fire, and not in the good way, in like the dumpster fire way. The A++++ grade, obviously that's ridiculous. But there are some key indicators that Donald Trump and his administration knows that this is going really badly. First, Susie Wiles having to go out there and say he's going to get back on the campaign trail. That'll really animate the right. Well, guess what? It'll animate the left as well. We aren't getting the jobs numbers anymore, the GDP numbers, or the inflation numbers. And we know that Donald Trump, if a number is even remotely good, or he can lie about it, he tells you what it is. Layoffs on track for Great Recession.
That is a Fox News desk. Those are Fox News cameras, and that is a devastating, precise, and completely accurate dismantling of the core argument the Trump administration has been using for months. The Biden blame strategy is not working. It is not resonating. And the person saying so is sitting inside the building that has been the primary amplifier of that strategy since January. That is the story. Not just that Democrats are winning, but that the cracks are now visible inside the fortress itself. Let's get into exactly what is happening and why the timeline of it matters more than any single result.
But I do want to talk about the economy, sir, here at home, and I wonder what grade you would give your economy. A+.
Yeah, A++++++.
Well, it's interesting because I talked to a supporter of yours. Her name is Melanie from Westmoreland County, PA, and she loves you. She gave you overall an A++ grade. But here's what she said about the economy. She said, quote, groceries, utility, insurance, and the basic cost of running small business keep rising faster than wages. She also says that not enough is being done. Mr. President, this is one of your supporters.
Okay, good. And I love her because you said I got an A+ on everything, I guess. I don't know. But
she's still worried about the economy.
But what you have to understand, the word affordability. I inherited a mess. I inherited a total mess. Prices were at an all-time high when I came in. Prices are coming down substantially. Look at energy. You and I discussed before the interview, energy. Energy has come down incredibly. When energy comes down, everything, because it's so much bigger than any other subject, but energy has come down incredibly. Prices are all coming down. It's been 10 months. It's amazing what we've done.
A++. That gap between what the president is saying and what Americans are actually feeling in their wallets is the single most important variable in every election result you are about to see over the next 12 months. And Miami just proved it is already showing up at the ballot box. Here is the full breakdown. Start with the result itself because the scale of it matters. Democrats just flipped the Miami mayor's office, first time in nearly 30 years. Eileen Higgins defeated Emilio Gonzalez, a candidate endorsed personally by Donald Trump, by 19 points. 19. In Miami, a city that has been a cornerstone of Republican electoral strategy in Florida for decades. And Higgins did not win on a complicated platform. She did not run on national ideology or partisan culture war messaging. She ran on two things: inflation, affordability, making local government work better and faster. That was the entire campaign. And it won by 19 points in a city Trump carried. But here's the detail that is genuinely alarming for Republican strategists: the Hispanic vote. Miami's Hispanic community, which Trump had made significant inroads with in 2020 and 2024, swung heavily toward the Democrat. And Kilmeade, to his credit, identified exactly why that matters beyond Miami's city limits. The entire Republican redistricting strategy in Texas, one of the most consequential pieces of the GOP's national electoral map, is built on the assumption that Trump maintains somewhere around 46 to 47% of the Hispanic vote nationally. If that number drops, if Hispanic voters who moved toward Trump on immigration and economic promises start moving back, the math that underpins Republican control of Congress begins to fall apart. And Miami just showed that the movement is already happening. Kilmeade's explanation of why Hispanic voters in Miami shifted is worth examining closely, because it is more honest than most conservative commentary has been willing to be. He identified two distinct things. First, the aggressive immigration enforcement tactics. Not the border policy itself, the tactics. Specifically, the perception that Hispanic Americans, legal residents, citizens, people who have been in this country for generations, are being targeted simply because of how they look. Raids at Home Depot, people pulled from landscaping trucks. The optics of enforcement that does not distinguish between undocumented individuals and the broader Hispanic community that watches it happen. Kilmeade's framing was direct. Hispanic voters may support border security at the conceptual level. But when the execution of that policy looks like racial targeting in their own neighborhoods, that support erodes fast. Second, and this is the one that connects directly to Miami's result, the economy. Hispanic voters in Miami told pollsters they were put off by the Trump economy. Not the Biden economy, not the pandemic economy, the Trump economy. The one that exists right now. The one they are living inside of today. That is the shift, and it is not subtle. Here is where the A+++++ grade meets reality. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, Trump's own administration's data agency, reported the highest number of job layoffs in 3 years. 1.9 million layoffs, highest since 2023. Laura Ingraham, on Fox News, read that number out loud and then asked whether it was AI or migrants leaving or automation, which is a remarkable thing to watch. A loyal Trump ally on the most Trump-friendly network in America, struggling to explain away her own government's data. ABC News polling shows 70% of Americans report spending more on groceries. 60% report higher utility costs. Reuters confirms manufacturing has contracted for 9 consecutive months. Beef prices are at an all-time high. Tariffs are directly responsible for increased costs on everyday grocery items, including coffee and orange juice. In the farmer bailout, $12 billion drawn from the tariff fund exists because the tariffs that were supposed to help American agriculture are instead crushing it. The head of the National Black Farmers Association said it plainly. Agriculture in this country has been in complete turbulence and turmoil since the president got elected. This is a man-made crisis. And here is the detail that cuts through all the spin. The administration stopped releasing economic data publicly. Jobs numbers, GDP figures, inflation reports, gone. And as multiple commentators noted, Trump has never in his life stayed quiet about a number that was even slightly favorable to him. The silence itself is the data point. Meanwhile, the administration's response to the economic reality has been remarkable in its political tone deafness. Trump told Americans at a recent rally that some sacrifice would be required during the policy transition. Specifically, he suggested Americans could give up pencils and dolls. He noted that children only need 1 or 2 pencils, not 37, and that 2 or 3 dolls is sufficient, not 37 dolls. Former Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill's response was immediate and precise. This is a man with a gilded Oval Office, gold dripping from every surface of his personal spaces, telling working Americans how many toys they can buy their children. The hypocrisy of that image, conspicuous personal excess meeting economic lectures directed at struggling families, is exactly the kind of contrast that does not require a political ad to land. People feel it. This is the part of the story that deserves its own section. Because what is happening inside Fox News right now is genuinely significant as a political indicator. Fox News has been the most reliable amplifier of Trump messaging since 2015. Its hosts have defended, explained, reframed, and cheerleaded virtually every Trump decision, regardless of the underlying reality. That is not an opinion. It is the documented record of the network's coverage. And cracks are now appearing, publicly, on air. Kilmeade openly calling Miami a warning sign for next year. Ingraham reading BLS layoff data and visibly struggling to explain it. Tarlov, a liberal voice on the network, to be clear, delivering a surgical takedown of the Biden blame strategy that her conservative co-hosts had no effective answer for.
Her line that Trump does not have a supply chain problem, does not have a global pandemic, does not have the external pressures that drove Biden-era inflation, and is therefore solely responsible for the economic conditions Americans are experiencing right now, landed without rebuttal.
That last point matters enormously. When Jessica Tarlov says something on Fox, and the conservative hosts cannot counter it, not because they lack talking points, but because the underlying reality does not support a counter, that is a sign of how far the economic situation has deteriorated from a messaging standpoint. The Trump defense is not working. Not in special elections, not in Miami, not on Fox News. And the midterms are less than a year away. Miami is not isolated. It is the latest in a string of results that have been quietly building a pattern for months. Democrats have won a string of special elections. They have exceeded expectations even in races they ultimately lost, in heavily Republican districts where the margin of defeat has been dramatically narrower than historical baselines. The trend line is consistent across geography, across candidate profile, and across the specific issues driving voter behavior. And in every case, the dominant issue is the same: affordability, the cost of living. The gap between what political leaders are saying about the economy and what voters are experiencing inside it. Trump supporters at a recent rally, interviewed on Exit, delivered a message that should alarm every Republican strategist. They said clearly that they like Trump. They support much of what he stands for, but he is wrong that things are going well economically. His base, at his rally, saying out loud that the economic picture he is painting does not match their lived reality. You can, as one commentator observed, lie about a lot of things and have your base accept it. It is very difficult to lie about how expensive everything is, because people feel it, every grocery run, every utility bill, every time they look at their savings and calculate how long it holds. That feeling does not respond to rally energy. It does not respond to A+ grades. It responds to results. And the results right now are not there. The midterm elections are less than a year away. And the structural situation Republicans are navigating is genuinely difficult. The redistricting math depends on Hispanic voter support that Miami just showed is eroding. The economic messaging depends on a Biden blame strategy that Fox News hosts are now openly questioning. The base enthusiasm depends on a president who, by multiple accounts from people inside and outside his own coalition, is not well, whose rally speeches meander, whose economic claims are disconnected from documented reality, and whose response to struggling Americans is to suggest they buy fewer dolls. None of this means Democrats have won anything yet. Midterm elections are local, complex, and shaped by candidate quality, turnout infrastructure, and issues that have not yet fully developed. Republicans still hold significant structural advantages in multiple chambers and multiple states. But the warning signs are real. Kilmeade said so himself. And when the network that has spent a decade building the case for Trump's political dominance starts using the phrase warning sign on morning television, that is not spin. That is an honest read of a genuinely deteriorating situation. Miami was one city, one race, one result. But patterns do not announce themselves. They reveal themselves, one data point at a time. And right now, every data point is pointing in the same direction. Democrats are winning. The economy is the reason. And even Fox News cannot look away from it anymore. And if you find this helpful, hit like, subscribe, hit the bell.